Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and got kind of shocking news this morning. Not something that we were expecting to see, given, we thought this was a lame duck front office, but maybe not. Jacksonville Jaguars have extended left tackle Walker Little to a 3-year, $45 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. Essentially, that guaranteed money is going to mean that this deal is going to pretty much play out through 2025, 2026 for sure. Perhaps you could trade him in 2026, but not something we're thinking about right now. But kind of just a wild thing to see this morning. I got out of church and I looked at my phone and I don't even know how to describe my facial expressions looking at it, because I just didn't think that the front office was going to be out here handing out contracts for the new regime. But we'll see what happens at the end of the year. It's truly an unknown at this point, despite how obvious that change should be at this point. But look, good and bad with this. This channel, unfortunately, with how bad this season is, we've had a lot of negative we talked about, and I don't want it to just be negative, right? Talking about Walker Little and just him as a player, him as a draft pick. Did he earn this contract? And that draft class in general, right? Because that draft class right now looks phenomenal for Jacksonville. Going down the road, looking at this as these players are getting extended, you got Trevor Lawrence, who, we're not going to say much about it, right? He's a franchise quarterback, the obvious number 1 overall pick. Regardless of how you feel about him, he's the only quarterback in a class where you had to get a quarterback that's been anything really in the NFL. Mac Jones had one good year. The rest of this group, they did nothing. So Trevor Lawrence, obvious first overall pick, right? And he's been good for the Jaguars. You want more. Travis Etienne, he's had some good years. Maybe a more questionable pick at this point, just given where things stand in the backfield. But then Tyson Campbell, he's been awesome for Jacksonville when he's healthy. Walker Little, now he's getting extended. He's been a good backup, a really good backup for this team. And now we got to talk about what's he going to be as a starter long term, right? And then you can even talk about Andre Sisco at 65 in that draft too. He's had a rough year, yeah, but overall, been a pretty good pick for that spot, and I'd still think about extending him at this point. But getting into just Walker Little as a player. Look, he's been a good backup for Jacksonville for a long time. He's come in, he's played pretty well. You look through his PFF grades each year, he has consistently been a pretty good pass blocker. But overall, when we're talking about Walker Little, there's always been that question of, is he going to go from an average player with flashes of being above average to maybe being a good player? And that, at this point, I would say has not been really proven. You look through these seasons, you look at the snaps, right? You look at the sacks given up. He's given up sacks every year, right? A lot of penalties in here. There's things that you can nitpick about him, but overall, it's been very, solid, startable play for left tackle. And that's been a huge asset for the Jaguars. So for Walker Little, earning this contract, I think it's kind of on the high end, $15 million a year, but ultimately it's kind of where it should fall in the market, or pretty close, because that's what average is getting paid. Average is sometimes getting paid even more than that. And you hope that Walker Little, being told now, this is your job, you're not going to have to worry every year about being the backup. Maybe he'll have some confidence. Maybe he'll get used to it, and getting those reps will make him a better player. So you hope for all that. I don't think it's a terrible signing at all. I think this is a deal that could have a lot of upside for Jacksonville. It could work out really well. The questions are just two very obvious things, right? There's the discussion of the past, right? And how did you get here? And how awful the process has been to get here. And it's really a massive indictment of this front office. There's also the question about, why is this group that is seemingly going out the door at the end of the year, that we're just having patience on, or waiting until after week 18 for them to be gone, why are they making these decisions for the next group? Why are they making these decisions for the next GM? Crazy stuff. But we'll talk about the past stuff, right? How did you get here? And Cam Robinson, 2021, Walker Little's first year. He was a backup for this team. Obvious, right? He didn't earn the starting job that year. I believe Cam Robinson was playing on a franchise tag that season. He did not have a long-term deal locked up with the team. And so Walker Little comes in late in the season when Cam gets his yearly injury, which he's had for God knows how long at this point. He played pretty well, right? First game was, he played, I guess, week 9 as well against Buffalo, playing all right. He gave up 2 sacks in that game, though, but only 2 bad plays, it would seem, from him that whole game. And then after that, got some really good grades in here. Not a lot of pressure being given up. Really good performance for a rookie player at left tackle, right? This is good stuff. So you're in a spot where, yeah, at that point, did Jacksonville have a lot of money? Sure. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you can be reckless with how you allocate it. And so Jacksonville had a choice. You could move on from Cam Robinson, you start Walker Little, and you save a ton of money. Or you can pay Cam Robinson top of the market. And keep in mind as well that if you didn't go out and spend a ton in 2022, you also have the talk about the comp pick. Could have been something they could have done. They also franchise tagged Cam Robinson, I believe, that offseason before extending. So could have traded him. There were other options on the table. Jacksonville, for some reason, decided to extend Cam Robinson. And what I want to make clear, the player that Walker Little was as a rookie and the level of performance that he's had compared to this year and just throughout his career, it's been very similar, right? It's been this somewhat average play to above average that you hope can be better and you think can be better if he just gets the chance. He is not a player that I would necessarily go out and say that he's gone out this year and done something different than he's done in the past that would earn an extension. So my point in saying this is that you kind of knew what you had in Walker Little before you extended Cam Robinson. You had a player that was average, that could play better, and you had the option of extending Cam Robinson to what was at the time one of the biggest tackle deals in the NFL to a deal with a player that's going to be above average. Is that worth paying someone 15 or 16 million more a year? Hell no. Of course it's not, right? Anyone with a brain would be able to say that. And if you disagree, it's probably because you're looking at these players as being, there's a different gap between them, right? It's not as close. Maybe you saw Cam Robinson as a far better player back then. But that's where things kind of were at that point. And so Jacksonville goes out and extends Cam Robinson. You play him in 2022. He gets hurt again. Walker Little plays again that season, late in the year. Plays in the playoffs. You go into 2023. We're all looking at this like, how do we get off this contract? This is ridiculous. Why are we paying Cam Robinson all this money? Cam Robinson gets suspended. I remember even back then, I think we talked about this on the channel, but there was talk that the guarantees would have been voided because of the suspension. Nothing happened. And then you come in here, you see how Walker Little's playing. Really good in the early part of the season, right? He has some bad games, but what's he doing? He's playing left guard, which is not what he's done. Just not what he's good at, just like right tackle. They're moving him around, having him do all these stupid things, and Cam Robinson is making all this money, getting hurt every year. And of course, he gets hurt, I think, late in the season here, or at least before week 18 or something. And then you get to 2024. No guarantees on Cam Robinson's deal this season. I think we could probably even guarantee that. Yep. Come back here, you look at this. 2023, 0. And then 2024. Can't see it, I guess, because it's got the Vikings now. But there was no guaranteed money going into this year. Jacksonville decides we're going to keep Cam Robinson, who has not earned this contract at any point during his time here. He has not played nearly good enough. He has not been available near enough. We're not even going to consider asking him to take less money this offseason. We're not even going to consider it. And what we're going to do is we're going to play him this year, and then we're going to trade him at the trade deadline. We're going to pay him all the money he would have got from this year minus $2 million, $3 million, something like that. And we're going to ask for a 2026 fourth round pick at most. That's not logical thinking. And doing the math, adding up these cap hits, right? Because after 2021, this was your franchise tag that year, and then everything from 2022, 2023, and this dead cap charge in 2024, that's what he earned on that contract extension. The total of that, $46 million for a player that ultimately, it's questionable how much better he was than Walker Little. And on top of that, you're talking about getting what? Maybe a fourth round pick in the future out of it at best. It's not logical thinking, right? And that's where I really have a problem with how things played out and how this whole situation was dealt with. And you consider this in addition, the amount of money that you paid Cam Robinson to do something that you had a rookie on contract for going into his second year. The amount that you paid Cam Robinson to do that job, it was not much better, if at all. $46 million. That is almost 20% of the yearly cap charge that a team can have. $255.4 million, whatever it is now. Almost 20%. It's crazy. And the exact number is actually 18%. Just did the math on that. So, reckless, right? Absolutely reckless spending by this team. And that's why you get these results where the team really just kind of maxed out at slightly above average, because for all this spending, all these decisions they're making, there's not much upside, right? It's not a team that's being smart about what they're given and the resources they're given. They're being used very recklessly. Now the other side of this, right? So Walker Little, we'll get over this, getting extended now. This should, in theory, if the world was normal, or at least if Jacksonville was normal, be an extension that the GM that handed out would no part be on the team for. Because he should be gone. He never earned the job. He never did enough to retain the job. The only season that you could argue that Trent Baalke did enough to not get fired was 2022, where he still spent the most in free agency history for any team in the NFL. We went 9-8, which, hey, not an incredible record, but it was a great year, right? It was a huge comeback. And the team made it to the divisional round. You could say, yeah, we're not firing Trent Baalke after that. But at no point has this guy earned the job. He wasn't even a candidate for anyone. But he stays around because he just happened to be there. And we make up the excuse. And then we act as if he's earned it. And now we're having to sit here and think. If he's handing out this extension, this makes no sense unless he's probably part of the future, or at least still could retain his job. And that gets scary. Because if this team keeps Trent Baalke this offseason, if they do that and he gets desperate and he goes all out and just does his thing, it's going to be a disaster for this team. It's not going to go well. He may go out there and spend every freaking penny that this team has. The best they'll do is maybe making the playoffs. And I highly, highly doubt that. That is the way things are going if Trent Baalke sticks around on this team. And if you're moving on from him, imagine, just for a moment, say that, in theory, right, Ben Johnson was interested in this job. Let's just use him as a name, okay? Whether you agree or disagree, he'd take it. If you're Ben Johnson, and you're looking at all these teams, and if you want to be a part of them, and how you would build them, and what your plan would be, because there's probably some thought behind the scenes about that, one of the things you're thinking about is, I want to have control. I want to be able to form this roster in my image. I want to have a say in things. And I want to be able to change things quickly. You're coming into Jacksonville, where now you have a team that this offseason signed a crap ton of 3-year, 2-year guaranteed contract extensions or free agent signings, right? All these players that are stuck on this team next year that aren't brought in by the next guy, that they're going to be forced to keep because we let this GM spend out the ass on these players. So you have no control over that. You're stuck with players like Gabe Davis. If you don't like Darnell Savage, you got to keep him. Eric Armstead, you got to keep him. You don't have a choice. And now there's another one. Because maybe if you're Ben Johnson, what if you're coming in saying, we need to have an incredible offensive line. I have players I want. Maybe you want throw out Garrett Bowles or some big name in free agency. Or maybe we're looking to get a big name in the first round. Maybe make a trade and get a Josh Simmons. Like, these are things that people think about. You don't have the option anymore because you've been told you have to have Walker Little for the next 2 years. You don't get to make that decision. Instead, the guy who's getting fired, apparently, is making that decision for you. This is not about whether Walker Little has earned this contract or not. It's about who's giving it out and whether they should be able to give it out at this point. No excuse. Absolutely no excuse for Trent Baalke to be giving out contracts right now. I thought, back at the trade deadline, I told y'all, I was like, it won't matter after this point if Trent Baalke gets fired from, after the trade deadline to the end of the season. Because he's not going to do anything. There's nothing he can do. Well, apparently he can. Because he's handing out contract extensions. Well, he's either staying around, going to destroy this team in our year, or he's going to, go out the door, screwing it up for the next person, or deciding what the next person's going to have instead of letting them have the decision making. So it's reckless. It's obnoxious to me. I didn't expect to see this. Ultimately, I just want to make it clear that we're separating what Walker Little has done to earn this and what the GM is doing and whether he should be in this position. Because really, for any of these players, whether or not you're in the contract extension, this is for the next group to decide and should be taken care of early in the offseason. And the next time we go through the hiring process, it shouldn't take until damn near February, or maybe it was February, to hire the head coach and the GM. Shouldn't happen. But we'll see. So that's all I got. We got an hour until the game. I didn't expect to record early this morning, but here we are seeing all this stuff, and we got to talk about it a little bit. Want to thank our channel members, Premier Nasir 904, Mr. Dolphin, Scrubber Ducky 500, and Brian Foster for supporting. Appreciate y'all watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and what you would do. Your thoughts overall. Let me know. And we'll probably talk to you later today when we do the game recap or tomorrow morning. So appreciate it. Y'all have a great one. And finally, go Jags.